The sky has always been a storyteller. For centuries, storms have spoken in thunder, lightning, and wind, warning, cleansing, and reshaping the world. But something is changing. The story is getting louder, faster, and far more intense. Today, we are witnessing what can only be called a supercell surge, a powerful shift where storms are leveling up faster than ever before. Supercells are not ordinary storms. They are highly organized, rotating giants capable of producing destructive tornadoes, massive hail, and relentless rainfall. In the past, these storms followed more predictable patterns. They built slowly, giving time for preparation and response. Now, they are forming with astonishing sarbopurit, intensifying in minutes rather than hours, and unleashing their force with little warning. Why is this happening? The answer lies in a combination of changing atmospheric conditions. Warmer temperatures are injecting more energy into the atmosphere. This extra heat increases instability, the very fuel storms need to grow. At the same time, shifting wind patterns are creating stronger wind shear, the key ingredient that allows storms to rotate and evolve into supercells. When these factors collide, storms don't just form, they explode into life. Moisture also plays a critical role. Warmer air holds more water vapor, and this excess moisture feeds storms like gasoline on a fire. The result is heavier rainfall, more powerful updrafts, and greater potential for extreme weather events. Flooding becomes more severe, hailstones grow larger, and tornadoes become more unpredictable. But this surge is not just about science, it's about impact. Communities are facing storms that arrive faster and hit harder. Infrastructure designed for yesterday's weather struggles against today's kwan. Farmers, families, and entire cities are forced to adapt to a new reality where the margin for error is shrinking. This is not a distant future, it is happening now. Each storm season brings new records, new extremes, and new challenges. The question is no longer whether storms are changing, it is how quickly we can respond. Preparation must evolve alongside these storms. Early warning systems need to become faster and more precise. Urban planning must consider stronger, more frequent weather events. Awareness and education must reach every household, because in a world of rapidly intensifying storms, knowledge can mean survival. The supercell surge is a wake-up call. It reminds us that the atmosphere is not static. It is dynamic, responsive, and powerful. And as it changes, so must we. The sky is still telling its story. The difference now is urgency. The message is clear, the storms are leveling up. The question is, are we ready to do the same? Rapid intensification of storms, supercell storms, are now forming and strengthening much faster than before, often within minutes instead of hours. The rapid intensification of storms is one of the most striking and concerning changes being observed in today's weather patterns. In the past, storms typically followed a more gradual life cycle. They would begin as small disturbances, slowly gather strength, and then develop into larger systems over several hours. This progression allowed meteorologists time to track their movement and issue warnings, and it gave communities a chance to prepare. However, that pattern is shifting in a dramatic way. Storms, particularly supercells, are now capable of forming and reaching dangerous levels of intensity in a much shorter time frame, sometimes in a matter of minutes rather than hours. This sudden acceleration in storm development is largely driven by the increased energy present in the atmosphere. Warmer air temperatures contribute to greater instability, which is a key ingredient for storm formation. When the atmosphere becomes unstable, it creates an environment where warm, moist air rises rapidly. This rising air, known as an updraft, is the engine of a storm. In today's conditions, these updrafts are becoming stronger and more explosive, allowing storms to build vertically at an incredible speed. As a result, what may begin as a harmless cluster of clouds can quickly evolve into a powerful supercell with little warning. Another important factor is the availability of moisture in the air. Warmer temperatures enable the atmosphere to hold more water vapor, and this additional moisture acts as fuel for storm systems. When combined with strong updrafts, it accelerates the storm's growth even further. This creates a feedback loop where the storm continuously feeds on the surrounding conditions, intensifying faster than traditional models would predict. The presence of strong wind shear, changes in wind speed and direction with height, adds another layer of complexity. It allows storms to rotate, which is a defining characteristic of supercells, and helps them maintain their structure while continuing to grow stronger. The consequences of this rapid intensification are significant. One of the most critical challenges is the reduced warning time. When storms develop quickly, it becomes much harder for forecasting systems to keep up. Alerts may come later than expected, leaving less time for people to seek shelter or take protective measures. This can increase the risk to life and property, especially in areas that are already vulnerable to severe weather. Emergency response systems are also put under pressure, as they must react more quickly to events that escalate with little notice. Furthermore, the unpredictability of these fast-developing storms adds another layer of risk. Traditional forecasting methods rely on patterns and historical data, but when storms behave in new and unexpected ways, those methods become less reliable. This forces scientists and meteorologists to constantly adapt, improving technology and refining models to better understand these rapidly changing conditions. Ultimately, the rapid intensification of storms represents a shift in how weather behaves in a changing environment. It highlights the growing power of atmospheric forces and the need for increased awareness and preparedness. As storms continue to evolve at a faster pace, understanding this phenomenon becomes not just a matter of scientific interest, but a critical step toward protecting communities and saving lives. Climate and atmospheric changes, rising temperatures, increased moisture, and stronger wind shear are fueling more powerful and unstable storm systems. The increasing intensity of storms cannot be understood without looking closely at the changing conditions of the atmosphere. Over time, subtle shifts in temperature, moisture, and wind patterns have combined to create an environment that is far more favorable for powerful storm development. What once required a precise and less common set of circumstances is now becoming more frequent, allowing supercell storms to form with greater ease and strength. One of the most influential factors is the steady rise in global and regional temperatures. Warmer air plays a crucial role in storm dynamics because it holds more energy. This energy is often described as atmospheric instability, the tendency of warm air near the surface to rise rapidly into cooler air above. The greater the temperature difference between surface air and upper-level air, the more unstable the atmosphere becomes. In such conditions, even a small trigger like a change in wind direction or surface heating during the day can initiate a powerful storm. This means storms no longer need perfect conditions to form. They can develop in environments that would previously have been considered only moderately supportive. Moisture is another key element that has been increasing alongside temperature. As the air warms, its capacity to hold water vapor grows significantly. This added moisture becomes fuel for storms. When warm, moist air rises, it cools and condenses into clouds, releasing latent heat in the process. This released heat further strengthens the updraft, making the storm more vigorous. In effect, the storm begins to power itself, growing stronger as long as moisture remains available. This process leads to heavier rainfall, more intense cloud formation, and greater overall storm energy. Wind shear, the variation of wind speed and direction at different altitudes, is equally important in shaping storm behavior. Strong wind shear allows storms to organize and rotate, transforming ordinary thunderstorms into supercells. In a changing atmosphere, wind patterns are becoming less predictable but, in many cases, more favorable for this type of organization. When strong shear is combined with high instability and abundant moisture, the result is a highly efficient storm system capable of sustaining itself for long periods while producing severe weather. These atmospheric ingredients, heat, moisture, and wind, do not act in isolation. They interact in complex ways, amplifying each other's effects. For example, increased moisture enhances instability, while strong wind shear helps maintain the storm's structure, allowing it to continue drawing energy from its surroundings. This combination creates a perfect environment for storms to intensify rapidly and reach extreme levels of LQAWA. The broader implication of these changes is that the atmosphere is becoming more dynamic and less predictable. Weather systems are responding to new energy levels and shifting patterns, leading to storms that behave differently than those of the past. This makes forecasting more challenging, as traditional models must be constantly updated to account for evolving conditions. Understanding these atmospheric changes is essential because they form the foundation of the Supercell Surge. They explain not only why storms are becoming stronger, but also why they are doing so more frequently and with greater severity. As these trends continue, the importance of monitoring atmospheric conditions and improving predictive capabilities becomes increasingly critical for minimizing the risks associated with severe weather. More destructive impacts. These intensified storms bring severe consequences like stronger tornadoes, heavier rainfall, larger hail, and increased flooding. The growing intensity of modern storms is not just a scientific observation, it is something that is being felt directly through their increasingly destructive impacts. As supercells become more powerful and unpredictable, the damage they leave behind is also becoming more severe, affecting lives, infrastructure, and entire ecosystems. What once might have been considered rare or extreme is now happening with greater frequency, and the scale of destruction is steadily increasing. One of the most visible consequences is the rise in stronger and more dangerous tornadoes. Supercell storms are the primary producers of tornadoes, and as these storms gain more energy, the HTML of violent tornado formation increases. These tornadoes are capable of tearing through communities with incredible force, destroying homes, uprooting trees, and turning everyday objects into hazardous debris. The SRR and unpredictability of such events make them particularly dangerous, often leaving little time for people to react or find shelter. Heavy rainfall is another major impact that has intensified alongside these storms. With more moisture in the atmosphere, storms are now capable of releasing large volumes of rain in a very short period. This leads to flash flooding, which can overwhelm drainage systems, submerge roads, and damage buildings. In many cases, flooding becomes more dangerous than the storm itself, as rising water levels can trap individuals, disrupt transportation, and contaminate water supplies. Areas that were not previously prone to flooding are now experiencing it, highlighting how these changes are expanding the NTQ of risk. Hailstorms have also become more severe. Larger hailstones are forming within powerful updrafts, and when they fall, they can cause significant damage to vehicles, rooftops, and crops. For farmers, this poses a serious threat to livelihoods, as entire harvests can be destroyed in a matter of minutes. The economic impact of such events extends beyond individual losses, affecting food supply chains and market stability. In addition to physical destruction, these storms place immense pressure on infrastructure. Roads, bridges, power lines, and communication networks are often not designed to withstand the intensity of modern supercells. Power outages become more widespread and longer lasting. Emergency services are stretched thin, and recovery efforts become more complex and costly. Urban areas, in particular, face challenges as dense populations and built environments increase vulnerability to both wind and water damage. The human cost is equally significant. Families are displaced, communities are disrupted, and the emotional toll of repeated severe weather events can be profound. The uncertainty surrounding when and where the next storm will strike adds to the stress, making it difficult for people to feel secure in their own homes. Over time, this can lead to long-term social and economic challenges, especially in regions that are frequently affected. Ultimately, the increasing destructiveness of these storms is a clear signal that weather patterns are shifting in meaningful ways. The of supercells is no longer just a matter of scientific curiosity. It is a growing challenge that affects everyday life. Recognizing the scale and seriousness of these impacts is an important step toward building resilience and finding ways to reduce the damage caused by an increasingly volatile atmosphere. Growing risk to communities' infrastructure and communities are struggling to keep up with the intensity of modern storms, reducing response time and safety margins. As storms grow faster and more powerful, the pressure on communities is becoming impossible to ignore. The challenge is no longer just about understanding the science of severe weather. It is about how societies respond to a rapidly changing threat. The increasing SRBUE and intensity of modern supercells are exposing weaknesses in infrastructure, emergency systems, and everyday preparedness, creating a situation where even well-developed areas can find themselves overwhelmed. One of the most critical issues is the shrinking window of response time. In the past, storms often allowed for hours of preparation, giving authorities time to issue warnings and residents time to secure their homes or evacuate if necessary. Today, that window is narrowing. Storms can intensify so quickly that warnings may come only minutes before impact. This puts immense strain on early warning systems, which must operate with greater speed and accuracy than ever before. Any delay, even a small one, can significantly increase the risk to human life. Infrastructure is another area where the strain is becoming increasingly evident. Many cities and towns were designed based on historical weather patterns that no longer reflect current realities. Drainage systems struggle to handle intense bursts of rainfall, leading to urban flooding. Power grids are vulnerable to strong winds and lightning, resulting in widespread outages that can last for days. Buildings that were not constructed to withstand extreme conditions suffer structural damage, and transportation networks are frequently disrupted. These weaknesses reveal a gap between past planning and present challenges. Rural areas face their own unique set of difficulties. Limited access to emergency services, fewer resources, and greater distances between communities can make recovery slower and more difficult. Farmers, in particular, are heavily affected, as severe storms can damage crops, livestock, and equipment in a single event. This not only impacts individual livelihoods, but also contributes to broader economic instability, especially in regions where agriculture plays a central role. Another important factor is public awareness and preparedness. While technology has improved forecasting capabilities, the effectiveness of warnings depends on how people respond to them. In some cases, individuals may underestimate or delay taking action, especially if previous warnings did not result in severe outcomes. This can lead to complacency, which becomes dangerous when storms behave unpredictably. Clear communication and education are essential to ensure that people understand the seriousness of these events and know how to respond quickly. Emergency services are also under increasing pressure. First responders must deal with more frequent and intense disasters, often with limited resources. Coordinating rescue operations, providing medical assistance, and restoring essential services become more complex when multiple areas are affected simultaneously. Recovery efforts can take longer, and the financial burden on governments and communities continues to grow. Ultimately, the growing risk to communities highlights the urgent need for adaptation. The world is entering a phase where past assumptions about weather are no longer reliable. To keep pace with this change, investments in stronger infrastructure, faster warning systems, and better public education are essential. Without these efforts, the gap between the of modern storms and the ability to withstand them will continue to widen, leaving communities increasingly vulnerable to the of nature. Need for better preparedness. Improved early warning systems, smarter urban planning, and greater public awareness are essential to adapt to this new era of extreme. The need for better preparedness has never been more urgent, as storms continue to evolve in speed, intensity, and unpredictability. Adapting to this new reality requires more than just awareness. It demands a coordinated effort across technology, infrastructure, policy, and individual behavior. As the Supercell Surge reshapes weather patterns, preparedness must also level up to match the scale and complexity of the threat. One of the most important areas of improvement lies in early warning systems. While forecasting technology has advanced significantly, the rapid intensification of storms means that speed and precision are now more critical than ever. Modern systems must be capable of detecting subtle atmospheric changes and translating them into clear, real-time alerts. This includes the use of advanced radar, satellite monitoring, and data modeling powered by artificial intelligence. However, technology alone is not enough. Warnings must also be communicated effectively. Alerts should be simple, direct, and accessible to everyone, ensuring that people understand both the urgency and the actions they need to take. Urban planning and infrastructure development also play a central role in preparedness. Cities must be redesigned, with resilience in mind, taking into account the HTML of stronger winds, heavier rainfall, and more frequent flooding. This can include improving drainage systems, reinforcing buildings, and creating green spaces that help absorb excess water. Power grids and communication networks need to be more robust, with backup systems in place to maintain essential services during and after a storm. These changes require investment, but they are crucial for reducing long-term damage and recovery costs. At the community level, education and awareness are key. People need to know how to respond when severe weather strikes, and that knowledge must become part of everyday life rather than something considered only during emergencies. Simple actions, such as having an emergency kit, knowing evacuation routes, and understanding warning signals, can make a significant difference. Schools, workplaces, and local organizations all have a role to play in spreading this knowledge and ensuring that it reaches everyone.